So we are live now, so I'm just going to make sure that everything is working on my end. And perfect, Moonbook is already here. That is lovely. A couple of people are watching. Okay, good. So, hello. If you're watching this channel, you probably already know me. I'm Kathy. I'm a booktuber on the west coast of Canada, and I'm joined today by Lincy. Lincy, will you just tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Lincy, and I am the CEO and co-founder of BookSloth. BookSloth is a mobile app for readers and book lovers. Our aim with BookSloth is to help people discover their next favorite book or just new books they've never heard about, and then also connect them with other readers with similar tastes and sort of like create a community for book lovers.
Wonderful. Great. So my first and biggest question, I guess, is why does BookSloth exist? What was the starting of BookSloth like?
Yeah, so I'm an avid reader myself. I don't know if you can sort of tell.
Yeah.
And I've always been frustrated with other platforms that exist or have existed for years and didn't really meet my need, which was, I don't have a lot of friends and family close to me that read the same exact books that I do. And as I'm reading a book, sometimes I'm frustrated and I'm like, oh my God, this happened. And I feel like I want to shout or tell someone. I sometimes drag my husband and like tell him the story, but he never read the book. So he's like, okay, he's just listening to me here ranting about something. And I know there's other readers online. And so I felt the need to connect. And then the also frustrating part was getting recommendations. Like in order to find the next book to read that I'll actually enjoy, I had to go through like a whole research process, either Google, BookTube, Instagram, Twitter, like 20 different places, which isn't bad, but there's a certain time where it's a little too much. I just want to click a button and be like, okay, this is the next book. And I know I'll like it.
Somebody choose for me. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's sort of like the frustration and how it started, because every time I had to find what book to read next, I sort of felt like things could be better with the technology we have nowadays.
Yeah. Cool. And did you have like an app building background prior to this, or?
No, so my co-founder, Xiomara, is an app developer, and I'm a designer and web developer. So we actually met working together like at a newspaper company. We were like the only two girls in the tech team. It was all men and then just us. And so that's how we stuck together.
Yeah, bonded.
So we had lunch, and every time we were together, and then on one of those lunch breaks, we used to start talking about books and how it would be interesting. Hey, you're an app developer, I'm a designer. Like, we could make an app. And then it started like a fun project. Like, hey, it started off really like a Tinder for books. Like, what if you like swipe right or left on a book? And then it sort of evolved into there. And we decided to leave our full-time job. Like after Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, everything was like sort of up in the air with our jobs, or like we still had a job, but everything on the island was sort of distraught. We didn't have electricity for months. Like the island didn't have electricity for like 11 months. In our case, my personal case, was like 3 or 4 months. So I had my books to read because they don't require electricity, thankfully. And so that just reinstated like the importance of books in my life and connecting with people through the love of books. And so we decided to dedicate ourselves full time to BookSloth.
That's fantastic. I love that. And I love the concept of Tinder for books, because then I would actually download Tinder, but that's a different story. That's really cool. I like that you just wanted a place to find like what you're going to read next and not have to put too much effort into it, which is really great. I've also noticed while I've been scrolling through the app, like, oh, all of these books that I'm already interested in are already here, and I've been like adding them to my to-read list or putting them in their appropriate places, which is just, I could do that all day, personally. It's just so much fun being like, I know this book, or I know of this book. What goes into curating the different types of lists that you have on the homepage?
Yeah, so right now our team is fairly small, so I mostly do the curation on the Discover page. There's a top 3 that are with our system that automatically recommends. It's the recommendations, the upcoming books, and the community reads. Those are generated by the app based on what everyone else is reading, what you've picked in the app. And then the other curated lists, we try to switch them around like every month. So our process is sort of like, okay, July, like, is there anything particular happening in July that we can include in the app? June was Pride Month, and then back in May, the Black Lives Matter movement started. So we obviously focused on those, but we try to look at if there's any festivities or anything particular happening in the month, so that we can actually create those lists. Because I know that's what I used to do. Like, hey, it's winter reads, or cozy fireplace reads. Even though we don't have fireplaces here in Puerto Rico, but I still, in winter, I like to read. I'm a mood reader. So if it's rainy season, I like to do rainy books, or if it's holidays, I try to do that. So that's sort of how I go, and I try to do my best research, especially when it comes to things like whether it's Pride, LGBT books, or the Black Lives Matter, because I want to be able to create a list that makes sense and is giving proper information. As we grow, the idea would be to bring in people from those communities and have them themselves help us curate those books. Just like with the Latin heritage, we are Puerto Rican, so we also include books from that. So we want to also give a voice to more minority authors or different niches or indie authors as well, that sometimes get ignored, so to say, by bigger companies, or they just don't have a space because it's hard to compete with the budget that some publishers have. So we try to keep that in mind, and we try to be just as inclusive as we can when it comes to the lists. So that's sort of how we try to process things.
That's really cool. So does that mean that now, even though this started because you wanted to just be able to press a button and get your next book rec, now you're constantly just scouring all of the bookish internet to find out what are the books that are not being repped hard enough and that we need to put onto the app?
Yeah, that's sort of how it's turned into. I mostly read YA and fantasy or sci-fi. So at the beginning, most of the books were that because that's what I know. Or maybe Latin heritage started, we have the list because also from Puerto Rico, I know, because I don't want to recommend books uncurated if I don't have enough information. I haven't read them all, but at least I've seen the articles that recommend them or who's backing those books. And just trying to make sure, again, that I do an educated sort of list. And that's where adding more people to the team would help eventually. As more people go into the platform, our users can be the ones making the recommendations or helping us make the lists. But yeah, that's sort of how things are evolving.
Yeah, definitely. And sorry, I lost my question. This happens. It's live. It's fine. Nope, that question's absolutely gone. So I'm just going to go to the questions I have.
Maybe we'll pop back.
Yeah, exactly. I asked in the community tab of the app if there was anybody on the app that had questions for you. So I'm going to see if anybody responded to that. People are mostly wondering if the import from Goodreads is going to happen anytime soon.
Yes, I know. That's our most requested feature right now. Our team is definitely working on it full time. First, we actually wanted to get the app updates running because there were some bugs that happened with all the traffic that we got. So first, we wanted at least a stable version of the app so everyone can log in, add books, and then our focus switched entirely to getting the import back. We used to have it, but with so many people sort of downloading books, we started having some small issues. You're going to see some book duplicates. You're going to see some books with authors that are not the authors of the book. And that just happened with
that before. Yeah.
So we prefer to disable it and avoid just adding more books and more books with errors. So we disabled it. We're in the process of cleaning out those books to make sure that the duplicates are no longer there, even though some of the duplicates in reality are just hardcover versus paperback edition. So they have a different ISBN on our end, but you just see the same book cover.
Exactly.
But then there are legitimate duplicates where it's the same ISBN and the same everything. So we just want to clean everything up, and that's what our team is doing in these days. And hopefully then we can activate the import. We'll probably just test some accounts. I know we have a lot of readers with 1,000 books on their Goodreads, so we might reach out to those first. So
yeah, I volunteers tribute.
We're gonna do a post hey, any volunteers here?
Sweet, yeah.
And start with those, because if it's not the same me and Xiomara testing 2 or 3 accounts and then suddenly turning it on and 3,000 people, 4,000 people at the same time hitting that import, because we know that's sort of what's going to happen as soon as we announce that it's out.
Yeah.
But we really want to get it ready, hopefully this week, but you never know how when you're developing apps. sometimes things go exactly as you wanted it. That's very little of the time that happens. When you're programming, there's usually some unexpecteds that come, but that's sort of part of our learning experience. And that's why we want to test everything and make sure, everything's perfectly working. And we've tested it with the other users and readers before we have to turn it on and then turn it back because something else happened. So we just really want to avoid that. So it might take a little longer, but we want to make sure that once it's ready, it's ready and it's done for good.
Yeah, rather get it right the first time than have to pick at it many, many more times to come. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And the way we're doing it is very automated. So you're just going to click a button and you'll see, like, I tested it on my account and I only had like 400 books. And within like 3 or 4 seconds, it was already like done.
Wow.
So it's fairly like it's done. We just, we need to still, and since we know a lot of our users have already been adding books to their profiles on BookSloth, we also want to avoid, like, if you do the import, you don't want to have duplicates from the ones you're bringing from Goodreads or the ones that are already in the app. And what we also do, if the book isn't in our database, with the import, we'll bring the book and add it to the database automatically. I know a lot of people have requested, like, suggest a book if they find it on the search. So we're still focusing on the Goodreads import because most of those books are going to be added once the import is done. And then we can sort of filter out the ones that are missing still from the suggested book, because we have a really long queue and that's sort of manually, like, still updating. But hopefully this week, if not the next, we should have everything like running. That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah.
We really are working like 24/7 on that.
Yeah, no, that's really good to know. I've definitely been one of those people adding to queue or suggesting the books because I'm weird. I like to track my reading like real hardcore. So every time I start a new book, I'll go onto all of my apps. Maybe one day I'll just use one. That would be nice. But I'll go onto all of my apps, and anytime I've come across a book that's not there, I always do the suggest a book thinking I'm being helpful. But sort of am, sort of not, it sounds like, because
it's definitely helpful because if we don't get the suggestions, then we're still missing books, and maybe other people want those same books. Or our idea is get the imports ready, then I'll check all the list of books we have suggested, and then just add anything that's missing to make sure that we have a book, because our goal really is to include like all the books, but there's like millions and millions of books.
Exactly.
So it's a little hard to, other platforms, or let's say Amazon has had 10 years to build up this library with thousands of librarians helping them. So we're trying to cramp that into like, the next couple of weeks, get as big of a library. But
into a 2 or 3 person team trying to do the exact same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Very cool. One of the things I noticed, because I know that there's a difference between Android and Apple, I understand, like, I intellectually know there's a difference. I'm not a coder, so like I can't tell you what the difference is, but I know they're 2 different systems. And I noticed that when looking at my app, because I'm on Android, and then looking at how the app looks on your website, I assume it's Apple screenshots. So I was just looking at it and being like, activity, challenges, what is this? I don't have this, but I want it. So can you talk a little bit about that and whether or not it's just you haven't formatted it or whatever the appropriate term is for Android yet?
Yeah, so I'm an Android person myself, so even I don't get the challenges tab yet. So the way it works, it's basically 2 separate apps, 2 separate codes. Android and iOS or iPhone just have to be coded separately. I mean, there are ways to do just one code with React would be like the proper sort of code name. But we tried, and we wanted to keep the apps native, is what it's called, when you code specifically for iOS or specifically for Android. Okay. And it's because Xiomara, as a mobile developer, she does iOS and iPhone, and she's been with us since the beginning. She's a co-founder, and that's why we've always had the iOS a little bit more ahead, because when you have to do things and she'll get it, she does it. We haven't had an Android developer, but we outsource. So that's the idea, is to get both apps to be the same. But sometimes it just takes a little longer on Android. But hopefully within the next month, we'll get Android the same way that it is on iPhone. That's our goal. We already have someone working on it. But since it is 2 separate coding, so to say, and development, then they're not necessarily going to be in sync all the time. You have to have two different persons. In our case, it's two different people just working on iPhone and then working on Android. But the features that you see in iOS, we sort of test them out at the same time. If it works or not, then it gets to Android once we know people like it, or we eliminate it from both, and then Android only gets like the good parts once it's developed. And sort of that's how it is. Hopefully, as our team grows, if we have full-time Android developer, then we can sort of just have both apps and everyone can do the same at the same time. But again, it's a small team. We sort of do as we go. You sort of have to pick where to start. But believe me, Android update is coming. I'm crazy to have it myself.
Oh, I knew it wasn't anything personal against us Android users. I was just curious. 'Cause I was like, ooh, things that I like. Asking if there's going to be a website version of it. So being able to log in at BookSloth that way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the good thing about getting all this feedback is now we know what or how to prioritize for everyone. Before it took us a little longer. Like the team would meet and we have a list of features that we want to add. But now when we have thousands of people saying like this is the one we want, then it makes more sense. Like, okay, this is what we can work on next. And that's sort of what we've been doing. Like other than fixing things currently in the app or getting the import ready, the next step will be like sit down. I've been taking notes from Twitter, email, Instagram, everywhere where people have sent us a message. I've literally have like 10 different notepads because if I'm on my phone, I write it on my phone. If I'm on my laptop, I have a different. So we have like spreadsheets of ideas and things. Most of these things, thankfully, we already had thought about. So we're all like on the same page. Like I struggle for the same things, but now it just makes it easier for us to be like, okay, this is really what people want. Now we can do these top 3 things, and then, we can move forward from there. So yeah, like we have a plan. It takes some time. We're hoping to get more people interested now and joining the team, and that way we could maybe just make things grow a little faster. But yeah.
Cool. I want to know where did the idea come from for using the different badges that you have for basically ranking a book, which is such a cool idea. I'd never even considered myself before.
Yeah, so the idea came, again, because with all the technology we had, like part of the recommendation system, we didn't just want to recommend a book because, it's 5-star. I've read, a book that's 5 stars for a lot of people and I haven't enjoyed it, or I have not enjoyed a 3, just because it's a 5-star for you or a 3 for me doesn't mean like you're not going to like it. So I wanted to go beyond just, let's give it 1 or 5-star ratings. I know everyone wants half stars. Now that we're on the star rating subject, it's coming. We want to get that.
That's going to make a lot of people very happy. A lot of people have wanted half stars forever on, that other platform. So give the people what they want.
That's number 1 on our list next, after the import. That's one of the new features that we want to work on. One that we added in our current update was like the longer reviews. Because first we only allowed for like 600 characters, but now you can add up to 2,000 characters. But that was, let's say, an easier change to do than the star rating system. And so that's sort of how we measure things. Like how much time is it going to take versus how much people want it or how much effort. And if we can, sneak some features in on the same update than we want to, but at the same time, we want to be able to launch updates continuously. Like instead of waiting 1 month for like a full-blown update with 10 new features, maybe we'll do a small feature here this week, and then next week we'll have like 2 more features as we test. But back to the rating system, I wanted to have something that, it wasn't just 5-star rating or 3-star rating, because that might be different for a lot of people. Like I've seen a lot of reviewers and things like, oh, it was a 3.5, and I've heard a lot of reviewers be like, oh my God, I love this book, 3 stars. And I'm like, wait, but did you love it? but she gave it 3 stars. And then they go around about, I love the characters and the world building. Like, these were the elements that made this book amazing. But then, I don't know, the plot line or the romance was bad. So that's sort of how I think about the badges, because you can rate a book, and then maybe you like books that have really strong characters or a really amazing romance. And even if someone gave it a 3-star, but everyone gave it a lot of romance badges, then maybe you really like that book. So it was sort of a system for us to get better recommendations on our Discover page. And we call it like the book badges, and that's how our rating system starts learning what people like. We want to expand on that feature more, because we know there's more than just like the reading elements. Maybe, there's moods, or like I said, rainy day or holiday, like maybe different filters that we can use for people to recommend books, or tags, so to say. So that's just like the first step that we went into for recommending books in a better way.
R, who's a friend of mine, wants to know if you have to give it a star rating to leave a review. I'm pretty sure you don't, do you?
No, you can just do badges, or I think at the beginning we forced people, because since we didn't have any ratings at all, we sort of needed to start to get the recommendation system going.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that it's not required. You can just leave badges, you can just leave a comment, or you can just add it to your read list and not rate the book.
Yeah, like I've noticed that you don't have to do any of the things that you're talking about. You can just put it on your read list, and that's completely fine. Or if you want to sit there and type your review, you can. Or you can press the little badges, which are really adorable, which makes them fun, which makes people more likely to actually do it, which from now I understand actually helps you out, because the more people that give them, or more people that mark their books with those badges, it helps out your algorithm, I guess.
Yeah, exactly, because part of what we want to do next is, like, when you search for a book, maybe you want to search by great character books or great romance. That's something we were actually working on before this whole thing happened. So that's probably also going to be something in the next couple weeks that we want to sort of work more to help the discovery of books.
Very cool. The only other thing on my list that you haven't already mentioned is people are wondering about being able to put timestamps on your posts. So being able to know like when this review was from, for example.
Yeah, I know for the community, we added the timestamp for like iOS, the iPhone. Hopefully the next Android update is going to have it as well. I don't think the reviews have the timestamps yet, but the community posts, which is the ones that are sort of moving a lot faster, will have it sooner. But yeah, those are the sort of small, not small, but those are sort of the things that we're sort of noticing that people want or need. As more readers start posting, even I sort of noticed, like, oh wait, like I should be able to either click on the page and go to their profile directly. That was something I was missing on Android that we added. It's things like that we sort of discover ourselves as we go, because I've been working with Xiomara on these apps for like more than a year. And sometimes I still think like, wait, did we get to add this, or was that like the last version? So as more people use it and see things and give us feedback, like it's really important to get that feedback, good or bad. If it's bad, there are ways to give bad reviews without totally crushing our hopes and dreams. But we accept negative feedback because it helps us. Okay, this isn't working. We can improve. We can make it better. And that's sort of how we're trying to work on this.
Yeah, definitely. Like one of the things that I've noticed would be helpful, especially on the community tab, is being able to find all of your own posts. Because I was like, okay, I know I posted a thing saying, hey, I'm going to be talking to Lincy. Do you have any questions? Then I had to like scroll. Where is it? I know there were answers to my question. Where are they? So put it on one of your 10 pads. Do it.
The iOS version has like a search, and you can also filter by type. Nice. So we want to elaborate, like that was our first version of the community, to see if people even wanted to talk or post there. Now that we actually see people, we try to see like, what are people doing? Most of them, which I love, is asking and giving book recommendations. So we definitely want to elaborate on that feature to make things easier, especially like you said, like searching through and filtering and finding what makes sense for you. So yeah, like that's sort of how we're going. Even with the challenges, that's also like a first version. Like we want it to be able to be more dynamic, or after you mark the challenge, maybe invite friends to join this challenge, say what book you read to complete the challenge. Like those are the type of things we want to get into. And when we add new features into the app, usually it's like MVP sort of version, like the first try. If people start using it a lot, then we can elaborate, and then we can put a lot of more effort and time into it. And that's where the feedback comes in, because if everyone's giving feedback on the challenges or the gamification of it or the posts and community, then that's where we want to focus our efforts.
We touched on it a little bit earlier, but I don't know if you actually answered. Eventually, will there be the website version of it so you can input your reviews that way? Just because I know that some people can't just sit on their phone and write their 2,000 character review, and it's easier to do it on a keyboard.
Yes, the idea definitely is to have a web app eventually. Okay. Once our apps are stable, and we have like the half stars and the next features at the top sort of things that people have been asking for in the app, since it's our main product right now, then we'll definitely have a website. We were in the process of sort of testing out the website. We did start with the community posts because of what you said, that it was a little hard to scroll through on the phone or find posts. We were starting like on a web version just for the community. And that would make it easier to post and reply maybe through web, and then we can add the whole ratings and books and discover part into web. Even like profile statistics and things like that for your reading is something we already were working on for web. But since we're the same team that does the web, then once that's done, we do the app updates, and then we can sort of get the web up and running.
Perfect. I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. My friend Audrey has asked if there's a way for users to make their own types of lists. So example,
not at the moment. Yeah, not at the moment. It's something we had considered in the past, just due to our limitations, like how big our app and database sort of is. It was harder for us to control, let's say, the amount of books that we had in our DB, if let alone our thousands of users each added 10 or 20 different lists. But I know it's a very requested feature. So after the half-star rating, that's something we want to like really look at how we can do it, if there's a better way, or if it's just, a new list in your profile, just like people expect. Because a lot of this, I know since Twitter is like, hey, let's leave said platform and go into BookSloth. But we are trying to be different, not just like a version or just not just a better version of that other platform that shall not be named. So there are things that definitely make sense for us that we want to add, but there's also a lot of new things that no one's ever done that we sort of want to bring into the app that are still like in the back of our mind. Like right now, obviously our focus is with the new users that we have, like make sure that we get the right experience that they want, and then we can sort of experiment with where BookSloth is going and what things we want to do.
Yeah. And like I did notice one of the features so far is you can sort of make your own list, but that's the recommended list. So you have your read, currently reading, to be read list, but then you can also put books on your recommended list for things that you really love and you want everybody to read. You just put the little heart on there, and then it shows up in its own little list, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at some point we also had like on the community, like people could vote for their favorite book. Like we had like a book club feature that was at the beginning, and then people could vote and select, what book we're discussing this month. We took it down because, again, since this is a new app, we're sort of trying things here and there. And back then we didn't have enough people to like sort of run a book club. It would be like we don't want to have necessarily enough posts, and that's how we switched into the community that we have right now, where anyone can post about anything, and then you'll sort of find someone to talk about that book you're reading. Yeah, but I think the list is something, it's something we can do. Technically, almost anything is possible when it comes to coding. It's just a matter of time and priorities that we're setting ourselves to be able to do things that make sense for us in BookSloth with what we want our app to be. And that's, finding recommendations. So the curated list, the personalized list on your profile definitely makes sense, because if I go to your profile and I see you have your top romance recommendations or, very specific titles list, then I could find recommendations from there. So that's sort of how we want to analyze things, not just making lists for the sake of making lists. Because I've been through the other platform and I see a lot of people have 20 lists and then one book in each or things like that. That's the sort of thing we want to maybe avoid. But at the same time, each person can just manage their profile how they wish. We just have to make sure to make it properly.
Yeah, definitely. One of the questions that just popped up from Aaron is the app blind accessible like with a screen reader?
So I believe we have most of our visuals is just like the book covers. Once we add the web version, you can do all sorts of, you can add what they call the alt text, which is what the screen readers do. I'm not sure there's an equivalent. I mean, there might be for the mobile apps. But at the moment, I don't necessarily believe it's 100% accessible because we only use like a lot of visuals, not so much text. And I know the screen readers rely a lot on the texts. But accessibility is definitely something we've wanted to improve, and we've done that like with at least on the iOS version. Recently, we revamped the whole for the text size for reading the description. The dark mode I know helps a lot of people. So that's definitely something you want to work on in the future.
Yeah,
but I know the web version makes it a little easier as well because of the display and the things you can add for that.
Yeah, being able to change text size and that type of thing is definitely very, very handy. One of the things I also really appreciated when I was hanging out on the app was that you have the upcoming books tab and that it's recommending books, I assume, based on what I've input into the app before, which is really cool.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to do there, like I read a lot of book series and I never know when book 4 is out or book 5. Like I have to like keep up with it. So I usually had like a notepad, like, hey, the new Percy Jackson book or Rick Riordan book who launches like one book every 3 months is out now. Or sometimes I find out 3 months later that the book that I was waiting for over a year was already out. So having the upcoming calendar was a way that I wanted to make sure if you add a book, you can see it and ideally get push notifications like, hey, this book you marked is going to be out this week and buy it on your local store. And that's sort of how we want to also like elaborate the feature, just so you sort of find out. Because I know for me, at least, it was a very manual, like either I pre-order it a year before or as soon as I can pre-order it and it just sort of arrives without me remembering, or I have to just keep tabs of all the newsletters from the authors or stock them online just to sort of, especially with series. So that's where the feature sort of came about.
That's very cool. Yeah, no, that's very understandable because sometimes I will know when a book is coming out and sometimes I'll be like, oh, that's already out, darn, or all of those types of things. So I really liked it. I also really liked that it's both in recommended, so things that you think the app thinks I will like, and then things that I've already put on my TBR list. It's like, oh, yes, I do want to read Hank Green's book. It's coming out tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. That one particularly I already knew, but because it's like one of my really anticipated lists because I need to know how that story ends. But yeah, I like being able to see, oh yes, these things that I've read and reviewed before are coming up or that type of thing. So that was cool. What are some other features that we haven't already discussed that you see in the future once you're able to get the coding to do what you want it to do?
So I think one of the fun things we want to do is mostly with the challenges. Like we do have the challenges tab, which is just like the typical read a book that has, green on the cover or by an author you've never heard about, like those reading challenges that we see a lot on Instagram or YouTube. So make that a little better where you can just add your own challenge, invite friends, add books to like, this is the book I'm reading, and then sort of maybe see who has completed most challenge, like turn it into like what we already sort of do.
Yeah, and a little bit of gamification.
Yeah, a little bit of the gamification just to make it fun for reading. I've heard a lot of teachers talk about how kids have to read, or maybe like the school reading that you have to do for summer. Maybe motivate people through those sort of challenges. And then the achievements are more badges. Like right now, it's mostly classic books. Like if you read Alice in Wonderland, you get a badge. Or if you read The Handmaid's Tale. But we want to elaborate that more into like book series and see how many books have you completed by series. So that's something we think might be interesting and sort of have leaderboards there. And then it's also the community part that people are already posting and asking for recommendations. Like we want to be able to elaborate that into, let's say you can tag a book. Like you sort of mention the title of the book and then you can maybe search like how many people have talked about this book or the trending, make it like a lot more social. So those are two of the things that I know we want to really like elaborate more, because the profile is going to be like the profile list, and maybe we'll make it prettier or easier to navigate. But in general, the features are just there because it's your book list. And then the Discover, we wish we could get the AI system to be, just as amazing as Spotify, for example, that creates a whole playlist for you and knows you better than you know yourself. So we want to get that Discover part to work and show you actual new books. But for the most part, that's like the idea is already there. It's with the community tab and the challenges or achievements where I think there's a lot of room for us to grow. And then the other part that I think is sort of experimental for us, but we would love to, see what we can do, is related to audio. Like there's so much things with audiobooks or more digital content that we can sort of bring that no one's really done. And that's something I know I want to experiment with, whether it's in the community or to Discover. Like we have certain ideas that we would love to expand on in the future, if it makes sense.
With the challenges, are the challenges coming directly from the app, or will there be a point where other people can create challenges for the community?
Yeah, I think that's something that would make sense, because there's a lot of like the Reading Rush or the BuzzFeed or Pop Sugar, like they create really good challenges. So it would be better like, hey, there's already, hundreds of people joining those challenges. Why not include them in the app? So it would definitely make sense that you can just add or create, or maybe at the moment we'll be the ones curating like from the top challenges that we know, just to see how it works. And then we can let people join and create challenges themselves, if that's what makes sense.
Yeah, or even just having a way for people hosting events like that, like I host my own readathon, the Queer Lit Readathon, twice a year, and just having a way for people to be like, hey, this is happening. If it's a thing that you think you could put on the app, that would be cool. And then that way you don't have everybody putting challenges on the app, which has its own
yeah, exactly. That's usually why we, at the beginning, we are the ones curating the list, or we are the ones sort of controlling, but that's just because of our resources. Because again, if I open up the challenges, like you said, and then everyone just suddenly we have 1,000 challenges, and then maybe one has 100 people, and then the other ones have no one, or that's sort of the thing we want to make sure that we curate, so to say, to make things run and work properly. But there's definitely space to, like, our idea is to be, again, inclusive. Like if there's organizations or book clubs that already exist, we don't necessarily just want to create our own, but we want to just bring them in our app and just have them use it and take advantage of the technology that we're putting forward, to just use it and how they want.
Yeah, because I love a readathon, like I do so many readathons because I love them so much, mostly because you get to pick out books with very specific prompts, and I just love doing that at all times. I would love a readathon tab where I just keep track of all of the different readathons I'm doing and what books I'm going to read for them, because that information is just scattered all over my brain. That's my information that's on like a notepad and a file on my computer and here and there, and I have to go to several different places to be like, where did I write down what I'm reading for the Reading Rush this year? Where did I do that? And if there was a tab for that, oh my goodness, I would be so happy.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we're seeing it, because right now you can just mark it, but ideally you could be like, wait, I did this challenge like 3 months ago. What book did I even read for that?
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Just have a history of how many books you completed for which challenges and everything. So yeah,
that's very cool. I'm very excited for how things are going to go in the future, because obviously I completely understand it takes time to build apps. Like I can understand that without knowing how to build apps. So I'm very excited for all these types of ideas.
With the web is different. Like once you have a web page, you can sort of update as you go. The other part with the apps, we have to submit it, and then Apple has to review our app, and that might take days, might take a week, because now with the COVID situation, they have less employees. So sometimes we've already like given them all our work, and then we're just waiting for them to approve.
It's no longer
with Android, it's
hands.
the same. So that's also something that happens with the apps. Like they go back and forth through us and either Google or Apple until we can actually release and send out the updates. But we were going to try like to use our social media more and update everyone like as we go. Obviously, if I'm not on social media, I'm probably just working to get things running.
Yeah.
But our aim is to also keep you updated either on Twitter or on Instagram, let you know that we're working. We read you and we listen. It's just like busy.
Is there a best formal way of letting you know if we have ideas of ways to make the app even better?
So I did share. I think I shared a form on Twitter.
Like a
I can
feedback form,
repost it
right?
probably, and
That
yeah,
would be perfect.
I
Yeah,
can
because I'm
I
pretty
can
sure
retweet it.
yeah.
Otherwise, you can just always email it at info@booksloth.com. I'm also very active. Like I'm the one who runs the social media, so all the messages, all the tweets, or Instagram, and everything has been me, and the email as well. But you can just send a message through any social media platform, and I try to get back to anyone as soon as I can. Sometimes with Twitter and Instagram, they do like you have a message request instead of like just popping in my inbox. I'm not sure when that happens, but those are the ones that sometimes take longer for me because they don't directly show up in my inbox, I guess for security reasons.
Yeah.
Our account is public, and just whatever works. I'll pin on tweet like that Google form because I have like a lot more specific questions. But in general, you can just email us or write on social media, just DM us.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's really good to know. I know that I did that feedback form, but then I was like, where did I find that? So yeah, having that pinned in a place so people can come back, just because I know it's easier to have all of the information in one place, as we've discussed. One of the other questions that is actually one of the questions I put in the feedback form is there ever going to be a time on your profile where you can put click-through links to things like your blog or your YouTube channel or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. Like on the profile, we do want to add like the description section, and then hopefully that includes links to blogs or social media. And then in the community as well, I know if people have shared links before, we want to be able for people to click on the links directly from the community, like the posts. So yes, that's something that we want to add to our list.
Cool. Yeah, working on it is a perfectly valid answer. I like that a lot. What else? I think that we've gone over most of my questions.
Yeah, I think I saw someone ask about us being or bilingual.
Yeah,
at the top
here in the chat. So yeah,
here. Because the app and company is based in Puerto Rico, is there a big focus or intention of having bilingual titles, particularly translated? So yeah, definitely. Like right now, we started with the app like in English and mostly like United States sort of market. And that's once again because the community that we know is there, but we try to include right now Spanish is the second language books that we add, but that's again because it's something that I know about and I can make sure that I'm curating the list properly or that I know the community and I know the culture behind it on what type of books I'm putting out there. Eventually, the idea would be the app to be globalized, and then it could be translated into different languages. But right now, since we won't have books in those languages because we don't have all the books that exist, then it sort of makes sense if you read English books for now. Again, as we keep growing, the idea is to make the app available globally. But we were just starting with the United States market or people who speak English and those books, and then Spanish because it's what I know most about. But yeah, the idea is as we grow, we'll just keep expanding our library of books and languages on where you can use the app.
Wonderful. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because it would be very hard for me to create a list of, say, Japanese books because I do not speak Japanese. So it makes sense that you're starting the focus on what you know and then growing from there, which makes total sense to me.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, I'm just giggling at the fact that my friends have now downloaded the app and written reviews for their favorite books. Like keeping on brand, the only review they have is for their favorite book so far, and I'm just like, yes, I love that so much.
Nice.
It also just makes me, my friend Audrey is also in the chat saying that the first book they reviewed is also their favorite book. And yeah, I definitely want to just go look at the review there, even though like I know how they feel about this book. They talk about Cemetery Boys all the time, as they should, because it's amazing. But now I want to click on that tab later and see what they wrote on the app, just because.
Yeah. I had a friend actually, since we were talking a little bit about Animal Crossing before, She remade like some book covers, and Cemetery Boys was one of them. But she remade them with like Animal Crossing characters based
That's
on the
awesome.
villagers and whatnot. And so
That's
Cemetery
great.
Boys is on my list because I've seen a lot of let's say hype about it.
Oh,
So
it's so good. Yeah, it
nice.
was originally supposed to be released in the summertime, and then COVID. But I had an arc of it back in, I want to say, February, because I met the author at an event I was at last year. And it was basically like, I know it's not your job to give me arcs, but who do I hound for an arc? So, yes, very good. Very nice author. You'll enjoy it. It's a very good book.
Nice.
What are you reading these days when you have time and are not coding?
Yeah. Since this started, I haven't read anything actually for the past like 2 or 3 weeks. The last series I read actually was the Anti Darken trilogy by Kristen. And I was about to start. I guess I'm going to have to switch to this one. Every Heart a Doorway, the one, the Wayward Children, just because they're super short.
Yes,
and I think I can get through. Usually, I try to wait until the whole series is out, and then I'll just binge it because I'll forget what happens between 2, 3, 4.
100%.
So right now, I own the first 4 books. I haven't bought the 5th, and then I heard they might be 8 books in the series, but then I also heard they're sort of standalone.
They are.
So I'm like, maybe I can start because they're so short, and then I want to read, but how will it work?
Yeah, going back to the getting badges for different challenges things. If there were badges for actually completing series, I might complete more series because I'm really bad at reading the first book and being like, that was great. And then the second book comes out and I'm just like, do I remember? Do I want to do a reread of the first book? We'll never know. So I would probably finish more series if I had that extra little incentive of that little badge on my profile because I love badges.
Yeah, with the book series, it's a little harder for us to like join, like say which editions are what and what part of the series. That's something we want to work on because that is something I want to add. Like, hey, you completed the blank series, or you're on book 3 out of 7. But yeah, that's sort of like I said, I read mostly fantasy and young adult, but Every Heart a Doorway was the next sort of series I wanted to start because it's short and sweet, and I heard it's good for fantasy lovers.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's a pretty good series. I enjoy it myself, and it is short and sweet. So I do love a novella series, but you feel like you've gotten through so much.
Yeah.
It also makes me very happy that while we've been sitting here, a couple of people in the chat have added me or followed me on the app, and I've just followed them back because they're my friends. And my goodness, are your profile pictures really cute? So yes, that makes me very happy that people are enjoying the app so far. Oh yes, if you could also tweet out the Animal Crossing cover remake from Cemetery Boys, Audrey would very, very much appreciate that because, again, their favorite book of all time. So if you could tweet that out as well. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I actually think the author wrote to my friend like on Twitter or shared something because I think she recreated a character and called them I'll share it.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, no, that sounds like Aiden. Aiden is all over Twitter and is just a lovely human being, so that checks out. Cool. I've also got another friend in the chat saying that he's writing his review of Stay Gold, which he recently very, very much enjoyed. So everybody's just really much staying on brand in the chat, which is cool. I love knowing my friends' favorite books. It's just so much fun.
What are your favorite books?
Oh my goodness! As soon as you say that, every book I've ever read falls right out of my brain. Because I hate answering this type of question, a few years ago I just decided on a book that was going to be my favorite book, and now I keep updating it kind of on a yearly basis. So back in 2017, my favorite book was Words in Deep Blue by Kath Crawley, which is a YA contemporary set in Australia. It heavily centers around these two friends. One of their families owns a bookstore, and the bookstore, like they live above the bookstore, which, dream. And the bookstore has this thing called the letter library. So it's just like all these books that you can't actually buy, but you can sit in the store and read them or leave letters in them or write in the margins and that type of thing. I love bookish books, so that's why that was my favorite of 2017. I think 2018 was Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and 2019 was Red, White, and Royal Blue. And so far this year, it's Felix Ever After by Case and Calendar.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of most of those. They're like on the TBR spectrum.
Yeah, you're like, I've seen those covers. That one's green. That one's blue. Yeah.
Yeah. It was orange. No, I did read Evelyn from the ones you mentioned. I really enjoyed it. I actually want to read another. It's not by her, but it's a similar title, the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn.
Evelyn Hardcastle,
yeah. Those are always very confusing. They have nothing to do with each other. But I already read Evelyn Hugo, and I know her Evelyn Hardcastle is one I want to read because I sometimes read thriller, but more like mystery, no horror books in my case, but sort of whodunit murder mysteries are fun.
Yeah, the fun thing about that title is it has two different titles depending on where you're from. If you're in the UK, I think it's just the 7 deaths, and if you're here, it's the 7.5 deaths. And that's specifically because people were like, people are going to be not intelligent, and they're going to think that this is the same book as this other book, so we have to put that half in there, so that doesn't happen. I'm like, oh, well, that's such a weird reason to do it, but sure, whatever works, I guess. Yeah, that one's super weird, and it's the type of book where you feel like you need to reread it again and just see like all the things you missed the first time because it's very timey-wimey. It's interesting. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just reading the chat. Yeah, people talking about needing to up the ratings on their favorite books because other people have 3-star ratings. I understand this. Oh, wonderful.
That's a good thing about the badges. You can give it a 3-star and not feel so bad if you give it like badges because
like, 3 stars,
but at least I like the characters and the romance. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're looking for these things, you're gonna like it, which I think is great because giving a star rating is very subjective because my reading tastes are not your reading tastes or any other one's reading tastes. So.
Yeah, it's also why we have like the not for me option. We don't like to call it like, oh, it's a horrible book or it's terrible because it's just not for me. Like maybe you'll like it. I know maybe there are cases with problematic books that shouldn't be for anyone, but in general, it's mostly like just not for me. And I've recommended books like, I know you'll like it, but I didn't really like it because I'm not in for X or Y subject or things that happen.
Exactly, yeah. No, I really like that because it's not putting like your own personal like hate bias on things. You're just saying this is not a thing that I am personally interested in. It doesn't mean that if somebody else is reading it, they're a terrible person. Although in some cases, depending on the book, that could be the reason. But it's a good way to put it on an app setting, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And on that subject, something that is really important for us and we want to work on when we get to the star ratings or later is the trigger warnings. I know that's very important. Like being able to leave, it's going to be up to our readers because I can't add trigger warnings for books that I haven't read. And that information isn't necessarily available for every book online. Yeah. So we want to add that to the reviews. Like once our readers start giving books reviews or if they know there are particularly problematic books, we would hope once we have the feature that you can just add those warnings so that anyone that's interested in the book in the future can just see them before they read the book.
Yeah, no, definitely.
That's also something that's at the top.
Yeah, obviously this isn't something you've like formatted already, so you might not have an answer for this, but is that something that it would be kind of like with the badge system where you can click on the ones that are appropriate? Like this one has this trigger and this trigger and this trigger?
Yeah, that's something we could do, but the difference would be like, I don't know if there's just top 10, like it would be easier for us to start with like the top 10 triggers, violence, sexual or whatever, harassment, etc. But I know maybe there's more and people would like to be able to create their own. That's where it gets a little harder and maybe out of control because if I already have a trigger that can fall into this one category, instead of calling it 10 different things, then maybe we could start off with the top 5 or 10 different trigger warnings that are probably the most important, especially if it's very specific. So maybe we can start off with those, and then as we grow, then we'll just let anyone add any trigger word or like the warning. But it would probably work like the badges, or maybe like it would look more like the hashtags And so like the pretty little badge.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
different
Because you don't want to
category.
make pretty little badges for like there's violence or there's whatever in the book. Yeah.
Exactly. So it probably might look like when you add hashtags where it just creates like a little thing, and then
Okay.
hopefully
Yeah.
you'll just click through if there's any.
Yeah. Something that's still easy to scan and see and find that information, but isn't like cute because trigger warnings are, or the things that you require trigger warnings for are not cute. So yeah, that makes
Yeah,
a
it
lot
would
of
be
sense.
easier for us to have the categories like predefined. Maybe we'll just do broad categories first, and again, like I said, as we elaborate, then they can each have like, more details if you want to be specific on what type of violence it is. But in general, right now we can start with violence. If you don't like
Yeah.
something under that category, then be careful.
Yeah. And then something else that I would suggest, again, eventually down the line, I'm not saying do this
No, no
tomorrow.
worries.
No. Good. I'm so glad I'm not coming across that way. Is being able to do like a representation list. So you can, if you're looking for books with, for example, bisexual representation, being able to just be like, click all the bi books, I would personally be very happy.
Yeah, I actually saw, I think, one of your wrap ups where you have the graphs, and I love that. Like when you say how many like binary, non binary characters or how many people color or things like that. That's definitely really interesting. The way you go about it is sort of the same as with the triggers where you pick and whatnot. So it's just a matter of making the review like elaborate, but at the same time, we need to do it so that you don't just go to a review and there's like 30 things to add, to overwhelm the user. So yeah, I think it's definitely important for us. That might work better with some sort of hashtag system, because if you search right now, you can just search for book titles. But imagine you can search in BookSloth by romance, fantasy, dragons, like just
Yeah.
keywords, and it just pop up a book with these type of characters. But that's
Yeah.
going to work if all of our users actually use the reviews and give the books tags or give them the ratings. So at the beginning, it might be a little like off, but the more people add books to their profiles, the more people rate books. That's how our system is going to, get better at doing things like that.
Yeah, and funnily enough, the string of words you just used, like by romance, dragons, fantasy, that's the Queen of Aflaria. That's a really good book. So, book recommendation for you. That covers it. But no, I would love that. Being able to find things with very specific features would just be so wonderful.
Yeah, so right now we're depending on the community for that, because I've seen a lot of posts like people, hey, does anyone recommend a book with, bi dragons, fantasy, and then someone will find like you just yourself just gave a recommendation. So right now we're depending on that feature, but eventually we're hoping that the app can help you filter through any sort of books that you want, things like that.
Yeah, people in the chat are saying that they are very sick and tired of having to write out trigger warnings in their reviews, and having some form of system where you can just like add it would be amazing, especially because people, like I know it's hard to remember all of them. So you'll be like, I think I put all of the trigger warnings in my review, but did I?
Yeah.
Who knows? So yes.
Yeah, those are the things that, like, for the next update after the import, we're gonna add like the top things that are important to us, like the warnings, or the top things that people have asked about, which is like the stars. So depending on how long things take, then we'll definitely be adding those features.
Cool. And yeah, I really enjoy that you are taking like all of the commentary that people are throwing your way and being like, yeah, that is actually a good idea. So we love to hear it, because people have been screaming at that other platform for years about half stars, for example, and that other platform doesn't listen to people. So
yeah, we might take like a couple of weeks, but at least it hasn't been 10 years of being ignored.
Yeah.
And as we launch new features, like let's say the trigger warning, which can be as elaborate as, like they mentioned, the drop down or 30 different categories, like we might just start with 5 or 10, the number we sort of find within the trigger warnings, and then we can elaborate it. So it's if we launch with only 10, what I'm trying to say is that doesn't mean that that's where the feature is going to stop. So as people use it, we'll find out how to do things better or nicer or easier. But
Yeah,
that's sort of how the apps are, updated. Like we add new things here and there, and then we're sort of experimenting. So to say how things are done better, and that's where the key feedback comes in. So yeah.
Cool. Mary wants to know if there is a video or a run through on basically how to use the app so far, how to add books on the app, that type of thing.
Not exactly. I think I'm not sure if Ben made a video on YouTube. I saw one of our users sort of made like how to use BookSloth, but I'm not sure if he goes like step by step. Hopefully, I think I can tag an Instagram story on sort of how to start in the app. I can work on that and have it just pinned on my profile. Or maybe some sort of video on Twitter, but I think Instagram is a little easier for us because I can just do the screen recording on how to get started. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Just all the resources. We love all the resources. Sorry, I'm just reading comments to make sure I don't miss any questions. Just be a second.
No worries.
People are talking about trigger warnings and all that type of thing, and it's a very important discussion, but there weren't any questions there. So good. Just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything.
It's good to know it matters. Yeah, we're working on it.
Cool. And we love to hear that because normalizing trigger warnings is just so important. So I definitely love to hear that. I've taken up an hour of your time, which was about what I had allotted for this. Were there any other things that you wanted people to know about the app or what's coming or anything in general?
No, I mean, our team is like super excited. Like I think I shared on Twitter a photo of our team. It's just us 3 female developers. That's our full-time team. Sometimes we do get some external help, but mostly it's just us. So I guess the message would be like, we're listening to everyone. We're trying to get things done as fast as we can. We're really happy to see the support. If you like something, let us know. If you don't like something, also you can we're very open to the feedback. And the idea is to just keep making these apps better with you guys involved in the process. Like that's the beauty of where BookSloth is right now. Since we're still updating and actively working on listening to everyone, there are features that you can call out, just email us or tweet at us, and we'll try our best to add it within a timely manner, like if it makes sense with what the app is doing. But we're just super excited to get these updates out and to use the app ourselves and start talking to you guys and, just be part of our BookSloth community. And we really appreciate the support. So it's just, if things don't go out as fast as you expect, like just have a little patience, but we really are trying our best to make things go out. But like Xiomara would really want me to say, they have to go out right, no bugs, and I'd rather take a little longer to make sure that things are running smoothly and properly for everyone. And some things might break because that's how technology is. Like the crashes we had at the beginning was just the full-on traffic that we weren't expecting. And even companies like Disney have that happen when they launch a new feature, like Disney Plus not working for the first couple of days. So I would just, I thank everyone for their support. Like in general, everyone's been super helpful for us and super nice on social media. And, this is our jobs. Like we left, this is our full-time jobs. This is what we want to do. And we love what we're doing. So we hope that comes across and that with the next updates, we hope everyone enjoys it.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that. And I love that you're working so hard because you're passionate about the project. And, think of me in the future if you need like curated lists, for example, or any of those types of things. I would be totally willing to help with that type of stuff. There was one last question from Tori, just wondering how to add a profile picture. You go to your profile. Where's my camera? There we are. There's a little gear thing up in the corner. And then from there, that's how you can edit your profile. And then you just press that plus button next to where my picture is. And you should be able to upload from there.
Yeah, exactly. And the iPhone works the same way. And just like with the name change, sometimes with depending on how many people are sort of doing changes at the time, it might not show up like immediately. So sometimes you have to like either close or try again. That's still something we're sort of working for some people. But yeah.
Cool. All right, perfect. Well, if anyone else has any other questions, feel free to contact Lincy in all of the different ways, because that is open to us, or if you have any comments about things that would make the app even better in the future. Thank you so much for taking an hour out of your Monday to talk to me and everybody else that showed up for this
Thank you
chat.
for the invitation. I really liked it.
No, I was super excited. I was like, this app is different and I like it. So I was very excited when you were like, yeah, of course I'll do a live stream. So I'm going to end this here. And thanks to everybody who showed up and had questions. And feel free to add me on the app because I will follow you back. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.